So don't take it, don't buy it, don't use it at all in China.
Come and fly away with me. Come and fly away with me.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to share 15 practical tips before you travel to China in 2023. So if you plan to travel to China this year, keep on watching because this can be really useful for you. But before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and leave a comment if you like this video. So the first tip that I have for you guys is to plan ahead. I feel like it doesn't really matter where you're from and where you live. Going to China is pretty big because there are a few things that you need to consider. The first one is a visa. I think most passports require a visa before you travel to China if you're not Chinese. So this year, before I went to China, it took me a month applying for a visa before I could get my visa. So with this example, you really know that it takes a lot of time applying for a visa and to really get your visa in your passport. So plan ahead when you want to go to China so you don't end up missing your flight because you don't have a visa. If you guys need a separate video for how to apply for a visa, please let me know in the comments so I can make one for you. But for now, just plan ahead and keep in mind that you probably will need a visa before you go to China. Then the second tip that I have before you go to China is to have a VPN. If you use any apps like WhatsApp, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all those social media apps, you can't use neither of those apps in China without a VPN, simply because those apps are blocked in China. If you still want to use those apps, I highly recommend you to download a VPN on your phone or on your tablet beforehand so you can still use those apps in China. Basically, what you need to do is find a suitable VPN. This year I was also searching for a VPN. I also didn't really know which VPN was the best, but I ended up choosing for ExpressVPN. I'm not sure if I should recommend this because I definitely had some trouble with this VPN. It didn't want to connect a lot of the times. I just had a lot of trouble with that. I would say do some research for yourself, which one suits you the best, which one is the best price, and also make sure that the VPN that you choose is usable in China. Then the second thing that I want to address in this video is that if you have an iPhone, your phone may not work perfectly in China. I had this problem this year. I couldn't connect to any Wi-Fi at all. It didn't work properly. And my niece actually told me that this could be because I have an iPhone. She also has an iPhone and she said that she experienced the same problems as me with the iPhone in China. So if you have an iPhone, this may be a problem for you too. So just keep in mind, in case your phone doesn't work, this may be the cause of the problem. Then the next tip that I have, also for your phone, but then for your data. So how do you get your data when you're in China? If you just arrived, you don't have a Chinese SIM card, and you don't know where to get Wi-Fi or how to get internet at all. So I have this app, it's called AirAlo. So it's an electric SIM card, so it's not a real SIM card that you put in your phone, but it's actually just an app. It operates as a SIM card without a real SIM card. With this SIM card, you can't call, but you can buy data, so you can use that SIM card on your phone to use the internet. So what I did before I traveled to China is I downloaded this app, I selected a Chinese SIM card, then I just bought like 3 to 5 GB just to be sure that I have some data if I really would end up in an emergency situation and if I would get lost, for example. And it can be stored up to 28 days, I think. So don't buy it too prematurely, just buy it a few days before. That's perfectly fine. And then when you arrive in China, you can either choose for a Chinese SIM card or just to keep using this app and buy extra data all the time. But I must say that buying data on this app is pretty expensive. So I think buying a Chinese SIM card is much more beneficial for your wallet. Just check for you what works the best for you. Then the next tip that I have is about the COVID situation. So when I went to China in March, there was still like some COVID restrictions in China. I had to do a PCR test. I had to fill in a health declaration form. We also had to wear face masks on the plane. I really felt like I was traveling back in time, back to the pandemic. But I think now in the summer of 2023, I feel like there are already much less restrictions in comparison with when I went to China. Check all the information and see what's relevant for you, if you need to do some tests or if you need to fill in some forms, so you're well prepared and you won't get any problems entering China. Then when you arrive successfully in China, you need to remember that tap water is not drinkable in China. I feel like I definitely need to say this just in case you forgot or you're just so used to drinking tap water from the sink. Don't do that in China. None of the tap water is drinkable. If you still want to drink tap water, first boil it or just simply buy those bottled waters. I basically lived on bottled waters for 3 weeks and I was fine. Brushing teeth and stuff, I just used tap water and it was okay. So don't be too scared for tap water. I just wouldn't recommend to drink it because it's not drinkable. But like brushing teeth, showering and stuff, just don't be scared, it's all fine. So the next tip has a lot to do with what I saw on other YouTube videos and on other things on the internet, is that many people say that you shouldn't wear too many valuable jewelries or you shouldn't take too many valuable stuff to China because it can be dangerous. Yes, I agree with it, because in every city you need to be careful with all of your stuff because pickpockets are everywhere, so definitely be aware of it. But I don't agree that it's especially because it's China, because there are so many people there who wear extremely expensive stuff, all the designer clothes, designer stuff, bags, everything. So if you hesitate to take your LV bag or whatever, don't hesitate, because nobody is going to look at you, nobody actually cares about that. I would say just take it. There's no problem with wearing valuable stuff in China, especially in big cities. There are so many people who wear designer stuff all the time. Just be careful for your stuff because there are thieves everywhere, but it's just not especially in China. Like maybe if you really plan to go to some small villages, to, I don't know, nature, okay, then you can just see for yourself what's the best option, what to wear the best. But if you're just doing city trips like going to Hong Kong or Shanghai or Beijing, whatever, like those cities are so big and there are so many people wearing designer stuff, expensive stuff, so nobody's going to look at you weirdly that you are wearing a Gucci bag or whatever. Then the next tip for when you're in China, if you want to drive in the car in China, really be careful with this, because people don't always obey the traffic rules as well as in Europe or I don't know, in other places of the world, especially in big cities where it's extremely crowded during rush hours. It can be really tricky to drive, so if you want to drive, be sure that you're confident driving, because it may not be easy in the bigger cities. If you still want to drive, just make sure that you have a valid temporary Chinese license. I think you can apply for one with your foreign license at the Beijing airport, but just check where to apply for a valid temporary Chinese license so you are eligible to drive there. And just keep in mind that you need to stay sharp during driving, because like I said, not everybody will obey all the traffic rules as good as you. Then the next tip that I have is to download WeChat. If you don't know what WeChat is basically Chinese WhatsApp. People in China don't use WhatsApp, they use WeChat instead. I recommend you to download WeChat just to be sure. In the worst case scenario that your phone can't connect to any VPN, it doesn't have any data whatsoever, and you can only use Wi-Fi and WeChat, for example, then at least you still have WeChat to connect with other people. So before you go to China, I recommend you to ask your loved ones to download WeChat, so in case that you can't use your VPN, you can still stay connected with WeChat. Moving on to the next tip is about money. So how much money do you need and how much money do you need to have every day? So what I recommend for you is to always have cash with you, because your credit card and phone may not work as perfect as in Europe or other countries. So make sure that you have enough cash on you to survive through the day if you really can't use any other payment methods. It of course depends on where you're going to China, but to bigger cities, I would recommend you to at least have 1,000 yuan. You can just exchange your money beforehand at a money exchange point, for example. Other payment options are Alipay and WeChat Pay. I never used Alipay, so I I don't really know how that works, but I think it's also with your phone. And WeChat Pay is payments through WeChat. You have a wallet on your WeChat, and if you connect it to a credit card, you can use WeChat to pay. So you don't need any cards or cash. You can just have your phone here and pay with that. But actually, I don't think it's that easy for a foreigner, because for me, I couldn't set up WeChat Pay on my own because I don't have a Chinese credit card. And for a foreigner to use WeChat is if you would have a Chinese credit card. I would just make sure that you always have enough cash with you, so you always have enough money to pay for everything. Then the next practical tip that I have for you is don't wear too revealing clothes. If you go in the summer or during the hot seasons, you can perfectly wear summer clothes, it's all fine, but just don't wear too extremely revealing clothes, because I feel like China is still a bit more traditional in comparison with Europe and other places of the world. So it's perfectly fine if you want to wear like dresses or sleeveless shirts and tops. It's all okay. Don't go too extreme because the culture is still different. Moving on to the next tip is to have a wall charger. For example, this one, like as an example, you have like all these different options that you can squeeze out, so you can charge anywhere. So it looks something like this, and here you also have different options, and also here, so you have 3 USB-A's and 1 USB-C. Yeah, just take something like this so you can always charge your phone or your other electronic devices. We're almost at the end, so keep watching. So the next practical tip is very important, and that is that drugs are absolutely not allowed and completely illegal in China. Don't take any drugs at all to China. You can get extremely heavy sentences for that, so don't let this slip out of your mind. So don't take it, don't buy it, don't use it at all in China. Please stay far away from drugs in China, because it can be a very dangerous game for you, and China is not tolerable towards drugs at all. So really remember this one. Then the practical tip before the last one is be careful with what you're saying in public. Don't make stupid jokes to provoke anyone, especially not in the political area or that has anything to do with the government or whatsoever. Of course, you can have your own opinion, but just avoid conflicts about these subjects in China, because it may not end really well. Enjoy your trip, have fun, and be careful with these sensitive topics in China. The last tip that I have for you is that not all hotels accept foreign passports. There are 2 different hotels. One hotel is only for Chinese people, so only for local people. Then you also have international hotels, which are also allowed to take foreigners with foreign passports. Check beforehand if the hotel that you booked accepts foreign passports or not. If this is not the case, then you may not be accepted in that hotel, and you need to find another hotel that do accept foreign passports. So these are all the tips that I have for you guys. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your trip. Hopefully this video was useful to you, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
Don't you be afraid, everything will change.